welcome to another episode of Camp, our weekly podcast on all things automation. Hi, my name is Joyce Zhang, a Senior Intelligent Automation Program Manager, and we have Peter Camp, CTO and founder of CampTek Software. Today we'll be discussing generative AI and everything that it's the newest hot issue, and we're here to talk about it. So Peter, can you just kind of let everyone know what generative AI is?
Yeah, essentially, generative AI is anytime AI is creating something on its own is considered generative AI. So many of you are familiar with ChatGPT, where you ask it a question and it responds and generates content on its own. Generative AI is simply the same type of concept. So it can be code, it can be content, it can be, even putting together statements, things of that nature.
So I'm kind of looking at your blog that you created and that you've written, and I'm kind of taking that and we're using that as a basis for our conversation today. And so the really big question is that's really hot right now is how can we utilize this ChatGPT, let's call it, because that's the name that people understand and have an association with. So how is it going to impact our current environment in tech?
Particularly, we'll start from the intelligent automation RPA space. We actually have a use case, fairly simple, but quite powerful. We're able to take CPT codes and validate whether they're correct or not using the GPT model. We noticed significant improvements from 3.5 to 4.0. We were at about 60% accuracy. Now we're at 95% accuracy. So, obviously technology is evolving. I think there's a lot of promise with ChatGPT in particular to help with, bringing RPA time to market, improving it quickly as far as feedback loops for questions that may come up during the coding process, recommending different avenues of coding. I know for one, we have a client that's actually generating PowerShell scripts with ChatGPT, and they're, you have to basically change a couple lines, particularly, but most of it's written for you. So that right there is a great example of something that you can create quickly, have a starting point, and then improve upon it. So if you look across the spectrum of the type of use cases we deal with, there's a lot of data entry, a lot of taking one piece of data from one system to another or from a spreadsheet. And a lot of times too, particularly with our physicians, they're having to write notes that are fairly boilerplate. GPT can help with a lot of that. So I think that's something we're seeing early on as far as adoption. But if you look across the spectrum of the generative AI, there's many more uses.
Mm-hmm. And so a lot of what you said is good and all, but how does that impact our RPA space? Will it impact? Will it completely take over? Or are we okay? Are we going to lose our jobs here?
No, actually, we'll be able to do more. So at quicker pace. I know that I'm seeing it already. There's quite a bit of tailwinds with this new awareness of generative AI, ChatGPT for RPA. Because a lot of the use cases that they may think of, oh yes, I'd love it if it did X, Y, Z. You need RPA for part of that. RPA isn't going anywhere. It's been around for 40 years. It's going to be around for another 40 years. Though it's going to take different forms. It's going to become more intelligent. We're going to be able to, ask and probably direct the automations via voice initially, and generate the code and ask for recommendations as it's moving through. But there always will be a need for coders, for developers. Generative coding or generative AI is no different than some of the code generation tools that were in the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s. They're great. They got you to a certain point, but you still need to take the last mile. One of the things that I think of as AI in general is it's an assistive tool. It's not necessarily an all-encompassing tool. So it's used as something that a human can use to aid its job, reduce the mundane tasks that they have to do on a day-to-day basis and provide some intelligence with it.
So so in short, we won't lose our jobs any day soon. It sounds like it's just here to support us. It can't, we've had a discussion about this in a different podcast. It won't become sentient and start thinking on its own. So that is great. And so how much of a real-time decision making are we talking about here? You've talked about the CPT codes, which are codes for medical procedures, and that's how our medical system can do billing with their insurance and things like that. So how real time are we talking about here?
Well, I think with any of these AI tools, data is always the key. So it's getting enough data to feed the model so it can make informed decisions. I know there's some pushback within the clinical space, even the financial sector, of having generative AI or ChatGPT provide decisioning, because there's obviously some ethics and issues with that. But I mean, if it's something that it's more rudimentary, like suggesting routes for truckers across the United States that may do X, Y, and Z. So it's really just getting the data together and feeding it enough data that it can actually make generative AI decisioning or recommendations, or create some type of content that is meaningful. So that's really the problem. That's the issue. That's essentially where you have to start with any of these technologies, is getting your data cleaned up, getting enough data to it, and then providing an ongoing feedback loop where the data is getting more intelligent as it's used. So I think you've seen, ChatGPT is really a great example of that. People have used it and it's getting more intelligent as it's being used. As it's finding more content, people are asking more questions, more pointed questions. I actually sat with a RPA vendor at recent conference, and they were showing the Python-based RPA tool, and they were showing how they were able to use GPT to actually code from a starting point, and then when the code broke, ask why, what the error is, and then GPT was able to recommend a fix.
Yeah.
So that kind of feedback loop, you're continuously learning, and it's continuously learning.
Interesting. So if we're able to ask and it's able to generate Python code or VBA code, is that problematic for us? Now I'm jumping back to us losing a job again. Like, is that problematic? And how does that integrate with the alarm that the healthcare sector has about PII, PHI information?
Yeah, I think, every step of the way with technology, it's gotten easier. You're not, you look at the baseline of any machine, it's a 1 and 0. We're not coding in 1 and 0s, right? So then if you move along the spectrum from just, from coding something and putting a card in a machine and having it being read, we're beyond that. So, it keeps moving. And with object-oriented programming with the last 20 years, there's less of a need to code every single, class or subroutine that you're coding. It's already been done for you. So this is the same kind of thing. So, it's just setting the paradigm, the platform even higher. So you can do more than you've ever been able to do quicker and more complexity. So the use cases of just, taking some data out of a machine or out of a spreadsheet and putting it into an application, those are simple. But you think about some of the things you could do beyond that, using RPA to actually make real-time decisioning using generative AI to, figure that out. So it's just, you're able to apply more technology similar to, where you use IDP tools. Before it was straight OCR where you had to basically figure out the position of a prompt and, go through that. But now you have highly unstructured IDP tools that can figure that out for you semantically. So it's just more tools, more technology, more intelligence, which only means more complexity. And, in our case, where we offer support, more need for support, because you're going to need people to support this tech.
So what I'm hearing is, because our business model is built into do the support, we're doing pretty good right now, even with the ChatGPT, the generative AI coming into the space. So what are the use cases that we have currently in use, and how does this generative AI link to our document understanding?
Good question. Yeah, document understanding is really, our partners have showed us some really interesting use cases with GPT and asking, we ask the question, where's the address? It figures out where the address is and then can build a model based on that, versus us trying to figure out where the address is. So for that, it's extremely powerful, as far as building models, complex models that need to work over and over again at scale. So that type of feedback loop is going to be fairly common, not just with IDP, but I'd say even some of the traditional programming that we're doing with applications. All the RPA solution providers out there, or our software providers, are all racing to come up with a GPT generative AI bent to their product. All of them can, as we do, call the ChatGPT activity, query it, get the answer. But that's not a problem. It's really building it into the product and having it interact with the applications that you're trying to automate, and providing a quicker, faster, more accurate way of automating these things. So we have like one use case, which you mentioned earlier with ChatGPT. There's some other ones that we're looking at, particularly with our physician groups. I can also think of some other ones that in supply chain that would be highly useful as well, that we're looking at as well at this point.
Right. A little sprinkling of what's to come. I love it. All right. I mean, I think, this is very enlightening, and I hope that our listeners here learned something and maybe even put them at ease a little bit about AI coming online and becoming sentient, and all those scary things from iRobot and Will Smith. Nothing like that's happening anytime soon. Okay, so I think that's all we have for everyone today. So we'll see you in the next one. Like and subscribe.